we have Mike, someone who I've known for many years. I don't remember how we actually met. I think we first met online on a podcast, no, on a Facebook group, many like travel blogging or similar related
Yeah, and then we eventually met in person in
in
Bangkok with
Bangkok.
Keith. Yeah, yeah, and Keith was there, and I still got the photo. Actually, I should put it back up. I keep deleting my Instagram. I'm going to keep this one. Yeah, that's us around a table with Keith. Yeah, yeah, it was a good.
A lot of other nomads during the time. Like we ended up like getting way, at least me, getting way drunk on the streets of Bangkok. That's what I remember.
Yeah, we were we were pretty, as the kids would say, off the hook that night. Although I guess not the kids anymore. You know, but yeah, yeah. It was a pretty good time. Thailand was awesome, man. Like I met a lot of people that actually through blogging on that exact trip. There was this other guy, Steve, I met. He's a black guy from, I believe, Chicago, and he's a comedian. And he got his start because of my blog as a copywriter. And then there was another guy, an Australian named Toby, who later got into like being a stunt racer or something like that. But
I think he was flying airplanes or something at one point of time.
I don't know,
Because,
man. It was
yeah,
it feels like yesterday to a point, like a hangover yesterday, but it was actually probably like we're going on like maybe 10 years ago. So
yeah,
it's
this
been
was
a
in
long
my
time, man.
first year or second year travel blogging. And I remember I published a guest post on your website back then because you used to run, I think Hobo with a laptop was one of the top digital nomad sites during the time.
It
So
was.
when I
Yeah.
was trying to get off my feet, get backlinks, get attention, your site was one of the first places I actually got featured on.
Yeah, and
But
that's yeah.
I don't know how, I don't actually know the whole story of how you got there because we just met in Bangkok in 2017. I don't really know much of the story before that. I've heard bits or pieces along the way.
Some of the lore.
Yeah, never the whole thing.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good spot to start too. I mean, like you and I, like we've been talking for years and years, but we never really went backwards in our conversation. It's always present and forward in our plans for the future. So we never really went back. Hobo with a Laptop was one of the OG sites. In hindsight, I can say that, but at the time, I didn't really know. And even now, like I recently started doing live streams and stuff like that myself, and I started a YouTube channel. Currently, I take down my live streams about a week after I do them. So if you go to my channel, Asia Based TV on YouTube, there's not any live streams there now. It's just talking head videos. And I'm currently in limbo, deep in the province of the Philippines, visiting my kids. And maybe I'll get to that part of the story later. But yeah, Hobo with a Laptop. Like I still meet people on my streams and stuff when I mention it. They're like, "Holy shit, you're that guy!" And it's like, yeah, man. And I've actually made a lot of friends since then because of it. And yeah, I guess I'll kind of talk a bit about that. So the origin story was I was living in Canada, and ever since I was 18, I was like moving around a lot, and like I would always like go somewhere because the term nomad didn't exist yet. You know, like this is like back in early 2000s, I think. Like I was only 18, so it was right after high school, and I would always buy my stuff again. Like I would buy a bed, I would buy a desk, I would buy a couch, and then I would, a year and a half later want to relocate to somewhere else, and then I would try to sell it or give it away, and I kept burning money that way. Eventually, I kind of came up with the mantra, just don't ever buy a couch. Because when you buy a couch, it's like, it's kind of a permanence thing, and I think just if you want to live a nomadic lifestyle, to me, a couch is more of a metaphor than anything. And every time I buy one, they always leave my life horribly. Like the last couch I bought for the first time in like 15 years was like 4 years ago or something like that. And I had to sell it at one point and I'll get to that too. But yeah, just don't buy a couch. But I guess that didn't really hit as hard. I actually heard that on a sailing podcast once. They're like, don't buy a couch. And they made it sound really poetic. And I guess I can't do that.
Those words often mean a lot to the people that describe them more than it can be shared often.
Yeah, because it's just like, it's another thing, like it's something that just ties you down. And it's something that like, I don't know. During the pandemic, I was watching all of these and I
Yeah.
got addicted. But yeah,
So you were 18 at this time when you kind of like already knew you wanted to like be nomadic.
yeah, like I was from Burlington, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, and I had already run away from home probably 6 or 7 times. First time I ever did, I was 4 years old, and finally, when I was 18, I just GTFO'd, and then yeah, I moved to Calgary, and from there, just slowly made my way. So Banff is as far west as I made it. I never made it to BC, and then when I became a nomad officially in the tropics, my last place that I lived was jumping around between Prince Edward Island and St. John, New Brunswick, and then that was my last stop. and then I was in Thailand on a one-way ticket. But yeah, I mean, as far as why I left, I mean, I couldn't really articulate it then. I mean, I had a lot of stuff I needed to figure out. That's why I left at 18. So I did about a decade or maybe 12 years or so as a nomad in Canada before I left for the Asia in general. I've been in Asia for going on my 16th year now. Philippines since 2016 mostly. It's my home base. But I had an office job in Toronto, and it was one of the only jobs I ever really had. I mean, I started off like when I worked in Calgary, Alberta. It was a transfer. I worked at IKEA, you know, and I was able to switch over to another location. And then the only other real job I had after that was an office in Toronto where we were selling like heavy duty e-commerce solutions, like web applications for like phone companies and stuff like that. And there was this one girl in the office. You know, she was, as you would say, a loose woman. And it was summertime, and as a sales, business development, business analyst type guy, and to keep up appearances, I had to wear a full suit in the office, and our air conditioning wasn't working that day. So I was a little bitter, and everyone else is walking around wearing nice, comfy clothes, and I'm sweating my balls off in this office. And I have to go to the filing cabinet, which I don't know why we used it, but I mean, that's back in the day when I used a horse and buggy to get to work. And you know, I'm waiting for this girl to finish in there, and I see this hot pink thong. She's wearing a mini skirt. I can see half her ass, and I was just like, dude, like, one, I don't want to be wearing this much clothes, but two, you need to be wearing more because I don't need to come to the office and see your ass. And then I almost got written up, and HR made my life a living hell after that. And I just, you know, every girl I ever dated, I mean, I definitely dated up back then. Definitely dated up, like girls from Celine Dion music videos and shit. But I just found that like women were generally kind of becoming like trashy, you know, like that was about 8 years after G-strings became like part of the uniform. And I remember back in the days, I guess Target would be the one I would say, but it was actually Zellers, which was a store in Canada. They were making them for little kids as well. So you'd see like a single mom and a daughter walking down the street with their hot pink neon colored G-strings popping out, little girls. And I just thought that girls were cooked back then. And I just thought, you know what, I really want to find a conservative wife. So I kind of kept that in the back of my head, and then eventually I went to the tropics. Thailand was my yeah. I guess in that term didn't exist yet either. I mean, you know, like that's basically like the predominantly black version of digital nomadism. You know, like, and I'm not being racist. It just Passport Bro did. I mean, you got to give recognition where recognition is due. You know, like
it was a Colombia thing. Like it started like the majority of it.
Yeah, everybody went to Colombia. Yeah, because they have different motivations, right? Like a lot of them are just. You know, maybe back home they're not as successful with the ladies for whatever reason, so they go out to Colombia, and you know, there's lots of blow, and you know, lots of ladies out there that are open to that sort of promiscuity, you know, that whole lifestyle. And I hear even now, there's a lot of guys getting drugged and stuff. But yeah, so I just like I wasn't a sex pad or anything, but I just kind of like left to find a lady. And first, I did kind of go and break myself in, and then after that, I through work I met my wife. We worked together for a year when I was living in Chiang Mai, and I met a guy from the UK. He ran a UK SEO company, and the dispatcher of my copywriting work at the time was my future wife. So I ended up hiring her to be my assistant a year later, and then we met in person, and then we were literally inseparable for eight years, plus the year we worked together. So I knew her for 9 years, and then we had 2 sons and all that stuff. But yeah, I really did get tired of how liberal Canada was becoming back then already. You know, I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, okay, if it keeps going at this trajectory, you know, I'm gonna be an early mover. You know, so that's kind of why I left.
When I got the idea of traveling, when I got the idea of leaving, I had models I could emulate, which was I could open Instagram, I could like the people who I modeled my life around actually existed, and they even became friends. It was Goats on the Road, it was Wandering Earl, it was Hippie in Heels, all of these people who I met all of them later on in life, or like met them digitally, became friends with them. And it was almost, even though I did something extreme, which was dropping out to travel the world, I actually had like a path to some extent, which was there were already people doing this thing where they've sustainably traveled for 10 years. But
what year did you go? What year did you go nomad? I forget.
The year before we met, 2016. So, but
okay,
yeah, because that's when I turned 18. But
okay, yeah. I'm 44 right now, if anyone's wondering. But yeah,
yeah. So like when I like quote unquote left home, or like choose to be like just like go on the road, there was actually structure. Like all of the movies had already been made in a way. We already had
the
it in
term
the
existed. So like,
Yeah.
like people didn't think you were crazy. Like when I was doing
No,
it, I
people
didn't.
thought I was crazy, but I didn't think that it was an unknown
Yeah.
environment. Like,
Yeah.
but so when it came to you, like when you actually decided to leave at the start, it have that world. Like you didn't grow up in this like hyper conscious environment of that being considered normal. Like Forrest Gump
Yeah.
running might be the only version of it.
Yeah. You just had to go full retard on that one. But yeah, I mean, Jenny. No, it's just like, yeah, like I didn't have a framework. I think that's kind of what you're trying to get to. And that's kind of why I left behind the map, you know, like I remember once with my boy, Mike, you know, I had 5 friends named Mike at the time, 5 or 6, and we always knew which Mike we were referring to just by the tone, like, Mike, you know, then you know it's this one, and then it's Mike, you know, then the respect, then you know it's the other one, my former best friend. But me and the Mikes all went to go watch The Beach in theaters. And I don't know if there's some movies where you get a high from that lasts, you know, like there's just some movies where you walk out of the theater. Like I felt that way with the movie Gattaca back in 97 as well, which is, we're living in it now. But yeah, like I just got a high off it, and I just looked at my friends and I'm like, this is it, guys. Like this is the answer to everything. And I also saw this, and I don't know if you're going to want to run it later. There's an ad by AT&T from 93, 94, and it was the You Will series, and I think it was done by the director who did Aliens, and Jeff Bridges
Okay.
is the one narrating it. Yeah, it's a really good ad series. And there's one where this guy has this thing that looks like an iPad, and he's on the beach and he's having a meeting with somebody. And I was just like, you know, I had a cell phone in 96 or 97, like Zach Morris phone, like, because I avoided home. Like I said, I ran away a lot before. And, you know, I was always kind of ahead of the curve on that. Dabbled in a lot of computer things. A little bit of computer hacking when I was in my high school years too. I used to hack all my friends' computers, and I was always like kind of an early adopter with certain things. So I just, yeah, like I had an impulse, but I didn't know how to go about it, and everybody thought I was fucking crazy. Like it was just homeless version 2.0 to them. Like they're like, why don't you get a real job? Like even when I was doing Hobo, and you know, I cranked up the income with only 900 views per day. With no social media and no list because I was an idiot, to over $20,000 US a month. You know, like, and even then, my mom, God rest her soul, and my dad, God rest his soul, he just recently passed a couple weeks ago. You know, they're like, why don't you get a real job? Come home. You know, you can go work at DeFasco or something. You know, like you know, like just I grew up poor. Everyone in my family is poor. Peasant thinking is a thing, and I think you can probably extremely, based on previous conversations, I know you can relate to that. And people just, if they don't get it, they don't get it, and it just breaks their brain. And then the other thing I noticed too is that when I was gearing up to leave, like for good, because I went home to visit before I was actually going to make the jump. But even when I moved out at 18, I mean, my sister's like, "You're leaving because you hate us," and you know, it was just like drama all the time. And the people that were closest to me, the ones like that were the biggest supporters and cheerleaders for what I was about to do, right before I did it, they started to just kind of like emotionally blackmail me, but like acting like they weren't, you know, like they were just like the ones I loved the most, and the ones that were the most supportive ended up flipping too, because they realized I was actually going to go to the tropics for good, one-way ticket. And then they start to like fill your head full of fears, and basically, and I always put it this way, we live in a way that is directly like oppositional to the lifestyle that people choose for themselves, that they feel safe choosing for themselves. And our decision to go nomad, yeah, it's like ever since my stroke, my vocabulary is not as good, but it's like, it's just like, it's flipping everything on its head, and it's making them re-look at their own choices. And they're like, it hurts them. Like it hurts them when you make your decision to live your life the way you want to, and some people get butthurt about it, and they end up trying to sabotage you. So
I
it's
shared a
interesting.
story with a friend recently that kind of surprised him, which was, so you use the word gaslighting. And one of the things I believed from a very young age was how much gaslighting is embedded in Indian culture. Indians have like some of the most strongest version of this, which is whenever you like people don't support you, and whenever you get successful, they take all the credit for it. So I actually told a friend of something I did when I was 18 before I left. So this was pretty much April 2016. So exactly 10 years ago to the week, my mom was yelling at me, calling me a disgrace to the family, blah, blah, blah. This was, I had
I got
$200
that
in my
too.
bank account before I left. And I told her, I know that once I become successful, you will behave like every Indian has ever behaved and take credit for it. So I'm going to force you right now to promise me that you can never ever take credit, because right now in this moment you do not support me. That is the and my mom did promise that, which is why if anybody actually goes back to go and talk to my parents, they actually will never take credit because they know how strict and on that idea. But when I told a
Yeah.
friend of mine, he was like, you did this when you were 18. And I was like, yeah, of course, because it's like that bullshit mentality, that gaslighting mentality was so embedded in the culture. It's obvious that you're going to see it, and it's obvious you're going to neutralize it. Understanding how to like kind of like solve it in a way, which is, I think we both want less drama. Like we're both people who
Hmm.
believe in drama minimization, but so and the way you get there based on the environment you grew up in is very different. But yeah, it's often very hard. But there are ways, and I do think for me, my way was kind of like like taking the most extreme version possible of the culture. Don't hold your punches and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
shutting it down early.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fully agree with you. I mean, like I did have, I mean, I guess, like me moving away at 18 and stuff like that. And then I came back for a while and I lived in a beautiful loft with my own private elevator, like an old building, like used to be an art gallery. Before that, I don't know what it was. It was like an old historical building right in downtown, inside the gates of downtown Hamilton, close to Jackson Square. Amazing. It was right across from Denninger's, if there's anybody from that area watching this. And, like even when I was there, I had a brief time working as a repairman for a leasing company that would get old computers back from leasing, and then I would repair them and all that. And I was dating a girl from that company, and then I ended up being like, fuck this, I'm going to get into marketing. And I instantly started getting jobs in that area, and I was working from home. But even then, like my family wouldn't, like, I think my mom came to my loft once in all the years I lived there. And, and that was her hometown. And, they just like they never supported it. It was like, well, he's not living the way that we live. And like I remember other people in my family were told like, look out for Mike. He's a tricky kid, like he's got to be doing something illegal, or maybe he moves around a lot because he's secretly gay. Like coming from a hardcore Reformed Christian family, Protestant, they just couldn't figure out why the fuck I was doing what I was doing. And yeah. So I get it. I get it. Like it's more than gaslighting though. It's more than that. I mean, that comes with it, but just having that oppositional lifestyle, like I don't know, like you really get to know people in your
I
family.
think for me, one of the things I tried to do was, if everything somebody says is negative, my mentality, even if it was my own parents, was you're no longer allowed to share your, like, I don't want to hear your opinion. I watched Suits recently, and one of the things Harvey says to Lewis in a scene, Lewis, you can say, like, tell yourself whatever you need to, but tell it to yourself.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I did, which was, I don't even want to hear your criticism. Like, you can be critical, but I don't want to pollute my environment bringing that criticism in my life, because it's garbage. And I treat my
Yeah.
friend with the same level of, you could almost say, like, contempt or like wasting my time, which is, if they bring that into my life, I'm like, I already got rid of this garbage. Why are you bringing this garbage into my life? None of us should
Yeah.
be tolerating it. So I do think that is a strategy, and it works in my case because my parents are not very verbal. Like if we just bring the
Yeah.
conversation to a certain level, they kind of will just tap out. While I think most, in your case, I do. Your parents are a lot more verbal, which means they continue the conversation because they debate the second order argumentation when you were younger,
It
probably.
was yeah, it was brutal, man. Like I had that problem too where I was always kind of weird. I was always like that weird with no filter, completely unself-aware, and I was just like super hyper as a kid, and I was really annoying, to my older siblings.
Same
And
for
they were
me.
just normies. Like they were like everyone in my family was obese to this day. The ones that are alive still are. Like I'm talking like 350, 400, 420
Wow.
pounds. And yeah, like, and they always looked at me because I was always like, I mean, I'm thin again now just because I stopped working out a while ago because I've been on the road a lot, but like 2 years ago, I was pretty ripped. But yeah, they were always like very overweight. And I would look at what they eat. And because I was avoiding my house so much, because again, ran away 6, 7 times. And I had a cell phone just so I could avoid the house. So you're starting to see that there's an underlying story there that I'm not going to get into. But I ended up, I guess, before intermittent fasting was cool. That's another thing I guess I was doing because I was like a healthy, thin, but like, just healthy guy. Like I would eat basically OMAD. Like I'd go home at dinner time as I was, or I'd get a beaten. And, but I would be gone all day. I would go to school in the morning and then stay out until dinner time and then do my homework at night.
Talk a little bit about the different jobs you had? Because I think you've had a lot of like working in different extreme jobs, and then
Yeah.
how you like kind of like weaved all those together. into blogging and moving hyper like just digital?
Yeah, like I was always into computers. I mean, I had an Amiga, I had a Commodore back in the day, and so that was always a part of my life. But in the beginning of my digital nomadism, I would say I didn't have the digital part. So like I worked in a lumber yard, and I took it as a temp, and everybody on the yard said he's not going to last 2 weeks, and we had a pool going, and I ended up being like, oh yeah. Yeah, let's put some money down on that then. You guys think I'm going to fail? And they're like, yeah, as soon as winter comes, you're done. And fun fact, bees like to hide in between the planks of wood in the winter with their like stingers pointing out. Yeah, it's like, so you're like, not only are you freezing your fingers off, they're getting stung too. But yeah, I ended up lasting 6 seasons before I met a girl in another town of Orillia, Ontario, and she looked like a Avril Lavigne clone, so couldn't resist that. I'm dating myself now, but yeah, I mean, like I had a lot of jobs. Like I worked at Hotel Nelligan in Montreal, where I served Lucy Liu, Jude Law, Hugh Jackman, Leonardo DiCaprio, back when Aviator came out, the movie where he pisses in jars. And I had a roommate that pissed in jars in Montreal. I lived in Montreal for like 5 or 6 years, and Montreal was really where I really put the digital in digital nomad because of the language barrier. I was managing a cafe in the English Jewish part of town, where all the like politicians and stuff were living. So I was like around very upper crust people. I ended up almost marrying a Jewish girl. Yeah, I'm. Her husband's actually famous. Her husband's one of the only people that scares Joe Rogan. So, but I'm not going to get into it. But yeah. So I had a very very interesting run in Montreal, and because of the language barrier, and because people wouldn't want to hire me right away for jobs that I really wanted, I ended up working at a small record label for a while, and we would take on multimedia deals, flash animation, which I had to learn. So I took a course in Concordia University there through the continuing education program. And I got a letter from my employer, who was also my friend. Mark, if you see this, I love you, man. I give him a shout out all the time because he's really the one that started me out. But he wrote a letter to the school, and I was able to start on third year just so I could learn what I had to learn. And then I handed in my work as my assignment, and I didn't even go back to look at my grades. We got the deal. I did the work. We made the project. And from there, I just kind of learned how to become really, because I was like really young at the time, and I just learned how to be self-sufficient working online at that point. And with the language barrier, it's do or die. Now, I did have the luxury of, working in a restaurant, so my food was taken care of. I would scoop up a case of beer by throwing it in the dumpster and then picking it up at the end of the night, every night, so I was able to fund all of my vices there. And the ladies are also quite exceptional there. If anybody ever goes to Canada, you have to go to Montreal during the summertime. They got like festivals every weekend, and it's great. And the girls are 10s, but they're willing to shack up with a 3. So that really worked out for me. But yeah, Montreal was really where I got my true footing. And then after that, a couple years later, I went back, because I went back and forth to Montreal. I went back to Hamilton, and I started selling websites for a little company. When I was in Montreal working at that cafe, I was making websites for rich Jewish people for $300 a pop. This is pre-WordPress. And then when I went back to Hamilton in Toronto, I ended up meeting a guy that was selling websites for $1,200 Canadian, but it had the WordPress style CMS back end to it. And I was like, okay, like I know I can sell. Let's double or triple your price, and I'll be commission only. And long story short, he had a team of 3, including himself, in which he didn't really do anything other than admin. So his team went from 2 to 9 within 9 months, and I made them over $1 million in my first 9 months. I ended up getting a call from a guy named Mark, another Mark, and he asked me about a t-shirt company website that he wanted to build. And when you're dealing with fabrics and sizes and all these other things, that is a very convoluted, like Shopify didn't exist, which I would have been the first salesman for Shopify too if I wasn't stupid. I'll get to that. I'd probably be there something famous by now. But yeah, so this t-shirt company website, because you're dealing with different sizes, fabrics, designs, the CMS has to be very advanced. And back then there was no plugin, no Shopify. So I planned out the entire solution. This was back before I learned, don't plan the whole solution before you sell a thing, because they'll just take that proposal and bring it to India, nothing personal. So yeah, like I planned it, and then I never heard from the guy again. And I was like kind of pissed off about it. A year later, I get headhunted to Toronto, where I work for the company that, sells solutions to TD Bank. Like the very first carbon credit score tracker in Canada. Sorry, everybody. I built it. Like I didn't build it, but my team built it. And it was for the staff of TD. It was a pilot. And then there was Bell Canada, TELUS, and a lot of other clients. I'm not going to say who I worked for at the time, but I got headhunted there, and I worked there for a year, and I exceeded against all, like I totally blew them out of the water. My mentor there was awesome. I love the guy, but I I sold more than him too in my first year because I had a book, and a year, like after a year there was always this drawer on the bottom right of my desk that was locked, and I just didn't care. I didn't even really use the drawers of my desk. I even brought in my own computer. Like I didn't want to use their shit. I like to use my shit. And one day I'm just like, like I'm actually like, okay, like it's been a year. I've been kicking ass. I'm moving in. And I'm going to take over this whole fucking department. I want to run this place. And I'm like, can you get this drawer open? And they open it up, and I see this proposal written by me to a guy named Mark. And it turns out Mark was told to call me because they heard about me. And he called me and he did that. And they were so impressed with my proposal, they headhunted me. And that's how I got the job in Toronto. And I didn't know that until a year later,
Yeah.
it just blew my mind, that's kind of when I realized there is no spoon. That was my no spoon moment. And that gave me the confidence to be like, fuck this.
What do you
Instead,
mean by
after
no
fucking that
spoon?
Matrix,
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, I can do anything. Like I was selling $300 websites and trust me, they were really aesthetically pleasing, but they didn't follow because there were no standards then.
Yeah.
There was no UX, and I was just having fun with it. To me, it was like art. It was graphic design. It wasn't web. It was graphic design. It wasn't business. It was graphics. And I built like a company, like a online cookie seller website and stuff in Dreamweaver, but like when it was Macromedia, not when it was Adobe. But yeah, like so that was my moment, and then I decided I'm skipping a lot in between, because I also had my own company. Fluke Media Labs, FML, fuck my life. And, I really cut my teeth on a lot of things. But after that, I ended up being like, you know what, I want to travel. So a lot of my clients were in the US, and I had moved out to the east coast of Canada at that point because it was right before I went nomad in the tropics for this phase 2. And I decided to leave the company I was working for where I built all the solutions and then work for the actual company that bought the solutions. And then I went there and I did UAT, and then I worked on their marketing, on the other side. So I worked on both sides. It's kind of like how the government and the FDA, they get people from big pharma to work in the FDA and vice versa. It was like that. I just switched sides. And they flew me out a lot to the US. And then finally they're like, okay, we're going to fly you back. Just expense your ticket and we'll pay for it. And I'm like, I'm going to Thailand. And they're like, what? So I'm like, I'm going to Thailand. I made enough money in these 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I made enough money to like live in Thailand for a year and a half. So I was like, I'm going. And they're like, well, we'll only pay for half of it. I'm like, okay. So that's how I got to Thailand. And I did consulting for a while after that. But back then, the internet just wasn't quite where it had to be. And
Which year
I
was
ended up
this?
2010, 2011,
Wow.
2010. Yeah. And I was living on a resort that was still being constructed. So I was living in a very nice, posh, fully finished part of it. But around my part, they were still building the infinity pool and they were still doing all the stuff. So like it was down in Ao Nang and Krabi. And down there, it was like still like no fiber yet. They were one of the first people to get fiber at my insistence. So now if you go there, it's insane. Like I went there after living in Bangkok and Chiang Mai for a couple of years. I went back and it was like completely gutted and transformed. They got like taller buildings and shit. And now it's like a soup. But I was there in the beginning. And so I had to give all my clients away to a friend. And I said, okay, like they still want to work with me. So if I ever come back, I get them back, right? Well, I never did. So, and funny story on the guy that I gave them to. He was, when I had that loft apartment, he was my drug dealer. And he was getting in trouble, and he was dealing more than just weed. And I just sat him down one day, and I'm like, hey man, step into my office here, and we're talking, and I'm like, you like this? Like he's like, yeah man, this is sweet. I'm like, you want this? You're the best dealer I've ever had in my life. You go above and beyond. You're an amazing business development guy because you're always upselling me. You're top notch. What do you know about computers? He knew fuck all. I trained the guy within 1 to 3 months to completely replace me back at that smaller company when I left the smaller company and got headhunted. And he ended up having a scandal later on. He got caught doing something he shouldn't have done. He destroyed the reputation of the company. But yeah, like I also learned I was able to train people's sales. Like anybody, like right off the street, guy that knows nothing about tech, and I was able to help him sell web. So it's like I also had a good teacher too. The guy that, gave me my footing with that too. Like because dealing with databases, I was doing static websites and dealing with that. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that. But yeah, like, so yeah, it was just like, I've had such an exceptional run. Like, it's like, there's just so much to it, like I'm leaving so much meat on the bone, but I guess we'll move on from there.
So once you were in Thailand, you kind of moved everything to being 100% digital because you wanted to
Yeah.
optimize for the
Yeah. And I had,
into
I had the domain for Hobo with a laptop, and I was always reluctant because of my suit reputation back home. I didn't want to damage it. And, I had after the money ran out and with having no internet, and I hadn't started copywriting yet. I mean, during the ICO boom, in crypto and all that, I was getting $1 a word, doing copywriting, but I wasn't there yet. This was like 2014, 2015, and I hit one of the first major speed bumps. About 4 or 5 years into being a nomad, I hit one of my first speed bumps. And when I became a nomad in the tropics, I didn't have I had money, but I was living well. So I was burning it really quickly in the beginning. I made that rookie mistake. So my mentor, the guy that got me my first big deals in Canada, he was going through something with his lady, and he's like, you know what, I need to get the fuck out. So he came down to Thailand for 6-9 months. This guy, we're born on the same day, 12 years apart. This guy is one of, on the whole world, he's one of the people I love the most. And he's like, Mike, you're having a rough time. I'm having a rough time. I'm going to get us to top resort. I'm like, well, we can just go live in the resort I used to live in. And we ended up living there. And he kept telling me all the time, you got to build Hobo. You got to, man. And I'm like, no, my reputation. He's like, dude, I gave you your legs. I gave you your life. I am the one telling you to build Hobo. It has a story. It's fun. People have an image in their head. It's a killer brand. It is a killer brand. You're going to be successful. And I kept, over the 9 months that he was there, I just kept resisting. And finally, before he left, we had a very deep conversation. And he's like, Mike, if you don't have, shovels in the dirt within a month of me going back to Canada, don't call me again. Like something to that level. He's like, you have to build Hobo. I feel it in my balls, bro. And I was like, all right, man, if that's what you're saying. And then fast forward, it became one of the OG sites, and
I mean,
I didn't know that at the time.
Mark Manson, the guy who wrote the Sell Art of Not Giving a Fuck. You're featured on his
That was
site.
a fun story too. Yeah. So yeah, that's a story and a half. So back in the day when so I had the site and I tinkered with it. I didn't know what to do with it when my mentor left. So I would write about tiny houses, because that was a big phenomenon back then. And I got crazy traffic from it. And basically anything I touched at the time turned to gold. Anything I wrote about went viral. But I didn't have any rudder. I didn't have a compass yet. So I started to kind of formulate a book on digital nomadism called Digital Nomad Escape Plan. And so I wrote the book. I hired my wife to be my VA from that copywriting job. She actually did all my copywriting under my name. So she ended up leaving the company to write for the company in my role under my name, and they didn't even know. So I just took her and moved her, and I almost I increased her wage. I 1/3 more than what she was making before, and she was able to make enough and do more writing. Not as good as me, mind you, but she was able to produce. Because it was SEO company, so you didn't need to be the top quality. She was able to produce 2 to 3 times more articles than I could, because I can't turn my brain off. Quality to me was an issue, and as a result, she was able to make enough for both of us to make a couple grand a month. She was killing it. And so I wrote a book, and the book became a bestseller and all that stuff like that. So I started putting chapters on Hobo. And then that's when it kind of the traction was slow. It wasn't really taking off. It just kind of it didn't stall, but it just the growth just wasn't as fast as I had hoped. And then I just let it sit. I didn't do anything with it. I started another company called CopyRise, where I became an SEO guy, but it was through copywriting with a copywriting focus. We did infographics and all this other shit. And then I went back to Hobo in February 2017, and I noticed that one of my offers for tiny house plans had $600 sitting in the account. So I cashed it out, and I'm like, all right, babe, we're going to eat rice bowls for the next month or two, and we're going to rebuild this, and we're going to build it proper. So, okay, there's 2 parts to the Mark Manson story. The first part is the origin. So when I was living in Chiang Mai, I was living on Neiman, and there's the Namana or whatever it's called. It's got a pool, and it's it was 11,000 baht a month for a decent apartment. And for some reason, I was living there, and for some reason, 50 of the world's top travel bloggers were all living there for an entire season or two. Blonde Abroad, just one-way ticket, goats on the road. There was all these different people that were there, and it was one big Skillshare. And at first I started off getting them sponsors, and then taking a percentage, and I just saw that they were I couldn't split all the deals. If they get a free trip, I mean, how do I they're not going to pay me, so how do I get my piece? So I decided, if you can't beat them, join them. And I hate travel bloggers. I fucking hate them. I hate them, bro. I just went to Singapore on a layover for 20 minutes. Here's the top 5,000 places to get a hot dog. I hate that lifestyle design porn, because that's what it is. I hate it. I always hated it, still do. And so I was there, but I decided to reverse engineer everything through interviewing them all. Not interviewing for content, just having lunch with them. And we would always eat at this Burmese place just down the road, which was awesome. The tea leaf salad. Fuck, I miss it. I really miss it. I hope it's there when I go back. But yeah, so I reverse engineered everything, and I learned that there was like a certain, that's really when I learned the most about web standards, at least for that niche. Every niche has their own standards. But yeah, so I reverse engineered everything they did. 2017 February, I started to apply what I learned, and they were all giving me little criticisms along the way based on analytics, data driven criticisms. And within 3 weeks, I noticed that my search results were being cannibalized. I was already getting indexed onto Google. And if I had a photo called Digital Nomad Hot Dog, and then I had an article called Digital Nomad Hot Dog, for some reason there was a glitch in the Yoast SEO plugin that would make it so they both got indexed, and then the photo would usually for some fucking reason come out on top and cannibalize the search results. So if people clicked on it, it's just a fucking retarded photo. Now Google filters that shit.
That's how I made my money in 2017, is
Yeah.
just consulting for businesses, fixing stuff like that.
Yeah. It was just a misconfiguration. It's like the default settings were stupid. And so I saw that and I was like, oh shit. So I made a form, like a template email where I explain how to fix it. And then I would just like pick off like the top people in my niche. And at the time, Mark Manson was blowing up. I mean, he didn't work with Will Smith yet. He had just become a New York Times bestseller for his own books. But I had been following the guy for...
It was internet niche at the time.
Yeah, because like he honestly got his start writing right around the time I did. Like his trajectory he blasted off. Whereas like me, it was like I just struggled. Like I have that glitch where I struggle with it and then I fuck it up. Like you've known me now a long time, and I'll be on the trajectory and then I'll just like, I'm happy with less, so I don't keep going. When if I would keep going, then I would be like, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. And yeah, so I wrote emails to all these influencers, and Mark Manson was one of them. Expert Vagabond was another, so on and so forth. And I just said, okay, so here's a screenshot proving that your shit's getting cannibalized. And I would actually do a search result, like Google screenshot, and then I would send them the form email that I wrote on how to like fix it. And I said at the end of the email, this is not a shakedown, but if you want to help a brother out, I just rebooted my blog. I'm actually putting into it. Here's 3 things on my site. If you like it, link to it. Just pick one. And the emails I got back from everybody, I had almost like, except for Goats on the Road, and they're Canadian, and fuck them. I've never hated nomads more than Canadian nomads. But anyway,
I met them in the bar once.
If there's anybody gossiping in town ever, if there's anybody, it's always a Canadian. Like, that's how they're very female coded. I mean, look at them now, they vote for prime ministers that have nice socks. And, anyway, so, and now your kind is taking over my country, but they're not. Unfortunately, they're not all like you. But anyway.
And you wonder why you didn't end up as successful as Mark Manson.
Yeah. But anyway, he wrote back and he's like, I never write back to these, man. But that was good. And he wrote super helpful in his email. So he never really endorsed Hobo. He just said I was super helpful. So I wrote him back and I'm like, can I say that you said I'm super helpful? Hobo with a laptop is super helpful. He's like, yes, because you are. And like, so I got Mark Manson telling me I was super helpful. And that guy's like, he's like, I don't know what he's done lately, but I got all his books and shit. So yeah, that was that. And then there was a bunch of other stuff. But what that did was within 3 weeks, I mean, I started with a $600 budget. Within 3 weeks, I made $600 fresh, and it just went, and then I had like 12 Reddit accounts, and I was like, and I hit the scene, and and then I launched my book, like proper, and then I ended up getting like Hacker Noon and all these other sites. They linked to my site on stuff, and so I would say as seen on, or whatever, and just put their logo there and look cool, and then I got mentioned on a Kentucky morning show by this anchor called Katie Solove, and she was cool to work with. In the end, she went in a completely different direction, and I was pissed off at her at the end. Coaching was not for me. I'll just say that. But yeah, she mentioned me on a Kentucky morning show, and then like since then, there's been like all these other things, like CNA, the Singapore news thing, when they did a thing on Passport Bros. I couldn't make it to theirs, but they did a documentary in the last year about Passport Bros, and they wanted me to come on it. I was on, Mojo, Watch Mojo, like you're watching Watch Mojo, and there's that one clip of like Spider-Man. He's like, oh, you're the girl. You say it, like I still want to make a clip where it's like that, and then it shows me, because I'm on a Watch Mojo clip as well. I was on 2 of them, and about digital nomads and shit. But yeah, like I've gotten a lot of press over the years, and that's definitely helped as well. And I still meet people to this day. Like just another month and a half ago, I met a guy from Singapore. He ended up hooking me up with some AI gig, training AI. It was pretty cool. And I had to go back to work, so we're gonna get to the fall of the Hobo soon. But that was kind of how I got up there. It was just like thinking creatively and shit. And again, it was another there is no spoon moment. You just gotta like look at something, and as soon as you see it, you gotta move on it quickly. If you don't, like, it's really what do they say, the first and best dressed, But most of the time, I didn't even put my pants on before running out the door, metaphorically. So yeah. That's how
For
that
sure.
happened.
I have a
Yeah.
question, which is I think we both have a trajectory which is similar, which is I think we have minds that overthink a lot, and that's also what leads us to like act on opportunities and find strategies that other people are not doing. Like travel blogging in 2017, 2018, even yeah 2019 as well. Something as simple as make your website fast wasn't general implementation.
Yeah.
Like just 6 years ago, the idea of have a fast website wasn't something people optimized. So I remember I was number 3 on Google for make money traveling, outranking Forbes, just because I made my website fast and I did interlinking and simple SEO. And so the barrier was that little because people just didn't think that far. But the thing that so we've known each other for many years, and during those years, as people would realize during these conversations, are much more on the conspiratorial, or like I wouldn't I don't mean that as a negative. Like Eric Weinstein has a good quote, which is
So
conspiracy
many of them came
theorizing.
true, man.
Yeah, no, no.
Yeah.
So I'm getting there,
Yeah.
which is conspiracy theorizing is a job for adults, and you can't do it with children in the room because they'll be distracted by something you said and get stuck up on that. So when I use that word, I don't mean it as an insult. So the same part of your brain that comes like that spends time thinking of conspiracies is also the part that can think up of better marketing strategies. And for the most part, conspiracies in one bubble are like almost not conspiracies in another. Like growing up in India, the fact that I could deadlift 4 times my body weight is a conspiracy theory. The fact that I can have a six pack is a conspiracy theory if you go to India. The fact that I could work online and travel the world is a conspiracy theory. When I watched The Big Short as a child, that felt like, oh, I'm watching this movie where it feels
Well, that is an actual
conspiratorial.
textbook conspiracy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because they
Yeah.
conspired.
So
It was a group of people.
exactly, yeah.
I mean, maybe they did.
But
But
now take
yeah.
this
Go
idea
ahead.
further, which is
Yeah.
we've had conversations around conspiracy theories for about 10 years. And during that time, you basically turned out to be right in the sense of everything that you've like a person who's been conspiratorial has kind of been vindicated over the past 10 years, especially after the most recent revelations. So it's almost like the conversation I want to have ask a question, which is now what? Which is how do you, in a sense, compartmentalize that bubble so it doesn't leak into other parts of your life? Because sometimes that can be the thing that trips you up because not necessarily just in the way you think, which is I used to be a travel blogger. I became famous on Instagram. And in 2019, I wrote an article of how Instagram travel influencers are cancer on the earth, blah, 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 blah. And the reason I do that is because the moment I got good at travel blogging, I am overthinking everything. I can't help but not overthink it because I have a brain that is hyper conscious that overthinks it. It's that same part of the brain that leads you to be conspiratorial. But that's the exact same part that caused me to quit travel blogging in 2019 and trip myself over versus most large influencers who can just ride that wave. They're like, okay, all I gotta do is play this tiny role. It's well defined. I've already solved it. I just do the same thing for the next 5 years. People are able to do that, and that actually helps them succeed. So, my question to you is given that you've mostly been vindicated in conspiracy theories in a way, how do you believe in a way, like do you see any value in letting it go?
And letting it go. Like how do you mean? Like dropping it or letting it just continue to percolate in your head? Fine, let it go.
So during COVID, there was a lot of value in paying attention, especially 2020, which is there was we all went through this reality of December 2019 to March 2020, where the few of us who were hyper aware and hyper vigilant and hyper online, we got an early warning. For us, everything, the world was going to change. We knew that in December. We knew that in January. I moved to the
Yeah, yeah.
mountains in the Andes out of the cities by March because I knew that the world is changing. So we
Mm-hmm.
all got this thing where we had an early warning system. We had information that helped us, and because we had that, we were able to prepare. And I think that has screwed many of us because it made us think that we were paying attention and it helped us, and that's going to happen again. And I don't believe it has. Like, I don't believe it
Yeah, I don't
has.
think
I
it
don't
has
believe
either.
after March
Yeah.
2020, it's ever helped anyone to be to be as vigilant of the world.
It actually really fucked me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, like it really did. Like the last few years, it's like I feel like I've been living in the upside down. You know, yeah. You know, it's like we were kind of like. I mean, my whole story up until the pandemic and the completion of the pandemic, I was boy wonder, man. I was always ahead of the curve, and it was always like it just felt natural. Like, and I mean, like I'm not. Telepathic or whatever, but I told my mother and my father in like autumn 2019. I said, I feel that something is coming. I don't know what it is, but I have a feeling this is the last time I'm going to see you in person alive. And they're like, don't be so dramatic. And I'm like, no, something doesn't feel right. I just like the hair stands up, spidey sense, And I didn't know it was going to be a fucking fake pandemic, And I was the first one in my town in Palawan to be wearing a mask when it first started. And then by like, yeah, it was like a 3 week, 4 week period where I was like wearing a mask, holding my breath. And because I was the first person on it, people were looking at me weird. And then before everybody started to wear masks, I already stopped. And I just kept buying carts and carts of shit because I knew the prices were going to go up because every time there's a pandemic, there's a world war, there's an economic crash, and I was preparing for all of it. But and then that's when my site was valued at $550,000 US by Empire Flippers, which another little segue to, or another like backtrack. When I was living at Neiman, you know who else lived there? Some of the guys from Empire Flippers, and fucking Matt Diggity. Matt Diggity, the guy that helped create refs. Now, I never really, I only met him once in person, and I didn't want to be annoying, but he lived in my building because I ended up moving from the one building to behind it with the luxury building. There was like a nicer building. And I lived there with my buddy Ryan Folstad. Awesome guy. Canadian as well. He's one of the only Canadians I like. And going back to this whole thing, like, I was flying high. I was making like sick cash. I was making like some months I made 25K US in a single month. Again, only 900 views per day. I got fucking rich and it broke my wife's brain. It broke my brain. I said, okay, well, we're not going to be like Jeremy, where Jeremy figured out the system and he was able to travel all over the world unjabbed. And we didn't get it either. We never got it. Instead, my wife was kind of on the fence. Like Filipinos are very compliant. So she was kind of on the fence about it. And I thought maybe she would go behind my back and get it. So I knocked her up. So I was just like, you're pregnant now. You're not getting it. And I started a family and that was the best. Like that was the highlight of my life. And but I didn't have to do anything. Like I only worked on Hobo from 2017 February to 2019 February. Then I had a minor stroke. I went back to Canada for a little while. Saw my parents. Free healthcare is free beer at a party. It's like, yeah, the beer might be free, but so is the hangover. Like I got free healthcare, but I had to wait on a waiting list 6 months. And then like it took 3 months for them to tell me you're fine. So it's like so minor, So that's why I was there. But while I was away, like I was worried that I was going to lose everything. And I told, I thought that my destiny was going to be altered if I didn't get back to the Philippines in time. And it would have, my kids wouldn't exist. But anyway, I had no real challenges anymore. Like I said earlier, like I get to a point and I'm fed. I'm satisfied. I'm fat and happy, like I come from a very poor family. So making 20K a month for a couple years, and then even before that, it was like 5K, 10K, a month. But it ramped up during the pandemic. And I just thought, you know what? Like I didn't work anymore. I stopped working when I had my stroke so February 2017 to February 2019. After that, I let Hobo coast. I maybe wrote 1 or 2 articles a year after that. And it still continued to ramp up in income because people were interested. Okay, like I'm going to plan to be a digital nomad when this is all over. And I just stopped thinking. I stopped thinking. And you and I spent a lot of time on Telegram talking about conspiracy theories. But eventually, I guess to your point, there's a point when it just becomes overload and it becomes much ado about nothing. And it is hard to snap out of that because you kind of rest on your laurels and you think you're so fucking smart. I outsmarted the system, but things are always changing and you always got to be on it, and like, I mean, AI kicked my ass. AI totally kicked my ass. Like December 5th, 2022, algorithm change. Traffic went to 0 and income dried up. Wife left 2 months later with the kids. Then she left the island of Palawan around November of 2023. And my life has been one of complete and utter degeneracy and debauchery ever since. I'm still a content creator, but I've made some nasty content, if you know what I'm saying. I know a lot of e-girls and I really feel like I just lost the plot when I lost my family, and I feel that there was a big dark part to that. I'm back on the horse now, but parental alienation is a hell of a drug. But like I don't want to go back or too far into the weeds. I'll address what you said, where you have to leave that behind because like it's a balance. Like you still got to live in the normies world. You know, like if you lose your connection to the normies, what product are you going to push? You know?
I mean, yes, I also
Yeah.
think part of it is how would you act if the thing is true and if it wasn't? Which was, I had this huge, like, kind of wake up call in health with me during the pandemic where I just, like, spent half the year debating about health, etc. And then I was on a flight from El Salvador to, from Mexico to Istanbul, and I put my bag in the overhead compartment and I pulled my shoulders. And then I was like, wait. And I had this intense, like, just like pain in my back. And then that was kind of like my wake up call of, you know what? Let's just drop all of these internet health debates. This happened to me in the middle of 2021 and just get healthier. Just get fucking healthier. Nothing matters.
Yeah.
Like, none of the debates matter. The only metric outside the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, is the to be able to say the sentence, I have more energy than 2019. That's it. That's the only measure of success. Like, the debates
Yeah.
outside that don't matter at all. The only sentence that matters is, did you use the time to improve your understanding of health, your understanding of the environment and everything around that, to just optimize reality. And in
Hmm.
that, it's kind of like you still, if you want to, you might choose to pay attention to it, but it almost gets compartmentalized and isolated to certain conversations, which is, you choose in a way to understand that certain situations you can't have other conversations because the depth doesn't exist in that moment. So you reserve the conversations in a way for adults while letting go of the idea that it matters to convince people in a way. This happened to me with many things where, like, health was the starter for many other things, which was before I ever built a business, I won a powerlifting title. Similarly, before I ever left general conspiracy theories go in a way, or just like, cool, like, I'll listen to it, I'll join the conversation, I'll tell you everything that I've ever heard. But do I take it seriously after the end of the conversation? Not really, because it's not that relevant. And I do think you can use that same part of your mind that is conspiracy theorizing in a way to personal life theorizing, personal or friend's life. Like, for me right now, it's, I can use that same processing power in a way to work on my consulting business, to work on my health, to work on my family. You can just, like, take that same computation and direct it towards things in your life that actually need help in a way.
And another thing too that I noticed post pandemic, now that I have the metrics and the numbers and the reporting to show that I know what the fuck I'm doing, pandemic also taught me that I don't have to explain myself anymore. Like, you know how many cycles we all wasted telling people why the vaccine is not a vaccine, that it's an mRNA gene therapy? Like, trying to convince the normies, trying to rescue and save them, trying to be their brown or white savior. You know, like, it's bullshit. And like, now I think that since the pandemic happened, I just don't explain myself anymore. I'm a black box, and if you don't like it, suck my dick. Don't care. Don't care. You know, like, that was one thing that I mean, it's one thing to go through all of these mental cycles with that way of thinking in your own life and you're applying it to your own success or you're doing whatever. It's another thing to waste time explaining to people that'll never fucking get it anyway. It's like to go full circle in this conversation, when we went nomad, did you want to waste all your time having debates and explaining?
Another thing that I think I had a change in a way was, I, to some extent, also stopped paying attention because I believe it actually takes less thinking to catch up rather than be on it all the time.
Yeah, I fucked up on that one. I fucked up on that one.
Because if you're paying attention to it all the time, you're
Yeah.
actually, it's almost like content switching, where every day you're
Yeah.
checking on it.
Yeah.
Versus if you're like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to it once a year and have that conversation once a year. And in that, to some extent, even if somebody says something that you know is wrong, I do think time, in a way, like you said, it's like not caring about it, which is, Nawal has this quote, which is, the only measure of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life. And I do think using that part of, like, the hyper overthinking, connecting the dots part of your brain can be directed towards much more local things. Like, many of the ideas will be disproved, which is part of the reason conspiracies in a way take time is because you share something which is maybe 80% true, and the 20% you will disagree with yourself in the future because you've got better information that you change your mind. So you're always having infinite conversations on the 20% you will disagree with yourself. So if you talk about them in public, as you can see in this conversation, I selectively chosen not to bring up a single version of a conspiracy. I'm trying to talk about conspiracies as a whole because I know
Mm-hmm.
if I bring up even a single one, that is going to be the thing that the conversation gets infinitely
Trump
dragged
is
into.
not the Antichrist. I'm just joking. I'm just fucking with you. Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of this thing where like people like just by avoiding the topic, you kind of like
Yeah.
prevent the infinite loops, and that I believe is something where like you can direct it personally, and you change your mind, and you don't and it's you move faster because reality in a way is your feedback loop.
So, what do you think about Israel? Just joking. I know. I get you. I get you. You're right.
I don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't. I personally, I wouldn't care if they turned the whole region into glass. But anyway, but yeah, as far as what you're saying goes, I agree with you because I think it can lead to paralysis. I think I've had paralysis. Like my body count now is in the triple digits, and all I do is pretty much smoke, drink, fuck, and watch the news. Yeah, like I have this like forest, like I can't see the forest for the trees, but I do have a hyper awareness of what's going on in every Commonwealth country and the U.S. all around the world. I see the writing on the wall. I see what's going on, and I'm actually getting to the point where I'm pretty damn concerned about it. This is different. This is different, and at the same time, I keep telling myself I got to get going because the only way I'm going to survive what's happening is if I become the way I was, successful again, and wring out some more of those dollaroos.
So I want to take the conversation a level up, which is so I have never personally been a presidential advisor, but I've been close to people who've ended up becoming presidential advisors or or people in power advisors. Now, at the same time, I follow a lot of people who are not famous publicly, but who end up with a lot of power. So oftentimes I've wondered about this, which is the people who are most interested in politics and in conspiracies are not really the people I know who are closest to power, because those people tend to have the policy of I'll catch up with that once I am the advisor to the president, which is and I think that's the policy I've adopted to some extent, which is I'm going to catch up with it after I'm the advisor, because the thing that gets me into an advisor position is not going to be stuck in that infinite internet loop. Those ideas don't survive 5-10 years. That helped you in the past 10 years, but that's probably not going to help you in the next 10 years. So if you're actually taking the conversation 100% seriously and believe that change is going to happen the closer you are to power, you only get to that power if you first actually are in a position to improve your, I don't know, just your competence. Like, I'm going on a tangent here, but I remember when we met actually, I didn't talk this way. And the thing that happened was I used to watch a lot of intellectual debates. I used to watch a lot of these lectures on the internet, and I only felt I could understand 10%. So I used to see these people have these conversations, and I'm like, my brain only works 10% of what those people's brains work at. And then during the time since we met in 2018, I decided, but wait, I can learn. I can improve the way I think. I'm going to spend all my time reading all of these books, and I'm going to catch up in a way. The conversation they had, the topics are almost irrelevant. More the competence, the ability to think and handle arguments in the mind. That was the thing that gave me. And I do think I
Yeah,
look
like
at this
it's kind of
conversation the
like
same way.
yeah, it's kind of like understanding how databases work. I mean, like when I was selling websites and stuff, as soon as I understood like dynamic versus static content and I understood tables in a database, like the technology can change and change and change and change, but the way the database works is always going to be the same. Dynamic content is always going to be the same. Like it's always just different languages and different whatever. It's always going to be the same. Where I differ from you, I think, and that's why I was kind of like not really like I was unsure of what your point was in the beginning. I mean, if I see an action or a historical event that took place that alters a view or an opinion that I hold, I'm always flexible. Like and I listen to both sides of every debate. I'm always flexible. But my ideas and my ideology and my hard, like my software, firmware, or whatever, I'm hard line the way I am now. And So I don't need in my age anymore, like I don't listen to debates anymore. I mean, I definitely love debates. I mean, my podcast, it's like a mixture of Philippines digital nomad information for Passport Bro, whatever, with a hefty serving of dating. And there's debates that happen that I do. But I already know what I believe ideologically. So, like, there's certain debates I don't need. Now, I am interested in what both sides are doing, but for me, the time for talking is over. Like, and I think kind of going back to what we were saying before too, like I've been in a state of paralysis for the last several years, due to whether it's extreme alcoholism or it's whoring or whether it's watching too much fucking day-to-day news, like watching every single thing, watching a whole thing. Like I could have literally just like in half an hour, I could have got caught up in the last 3 years, like in half an hour, like
Exactly.
to your point. Yeah, and that's my paralysis. Yeah, and it's like like I'm like you and I always kind of do this, and it's like we're doing it again. And right now, I think we're at another intersection because like I'm with you on what you're saying now that I understand it. It's just like I don't care about. I just don't care about debating ideology anymore. Like like things have gotten to the point now where I know what I have to do. I know what my plan is for the next 5-10 years. It's set in stone. It's future proof. Yeah. And my paralysis is over. Like I still like to, like I'll watch my political podcasts and stuff like that, but it's getting to be less again. So 2016, man, I became an addict, and the pandemic, I became an addict again, and I was a little bit in the last year and a half, but now I'm kind of tapering it off, and I got too much on my plate now. So I'm kind of subscribing to what you're saying. Like I'm drinking that Kool-Aid now. But yeah, it is what it is, man. It's one of those things where if you continue to go down that line, I mean, one, I guess like the takeaway that I would give somebody is like, one, don't try to convince anybody, make plans, not debates, and allow yourself to just let shit percolate while you're busy and doing your own thing. And then you can get caught up on things later. Trends are changing very quickly, but they're not changing that quickly. Like AI made a leap in the last couple months, and now I'm looking at it. I'm taking it very seriously now. I wasn't before. Yeah. But I think now I've got a plan that's going to be good for 9 months. My next 9 months are for sure planned out. But yeah.
So the next time you're guest on the podcast, it's going to be the we end this podcast with the downfall, and the next one will start with the rebirth.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of feel like you're like, hey, Mike likes podcasting. I'm gonna like as his friend, I'm gonna secretly give him an intervention on a podcast. Because like the conspiracy theory shit. Like. It's like you and I were hardcore, man. But
it's a very interesting conversation to me because
it is.
It's an idea which it used to be niche that became mainstream. So a person who
now everyone is noticing.
I have this thing with certain friends where like when they use certain words or bring up certain topics and they ask me certain questions, and I know that they ask me the question expecting me to answer in 5 minutes, or they use certain words and I know that they don't understand the meaning of those words, and I'm like, it's almost like I got to say, you're not ready for this conversation. It sounds mean, but it's or like this is not the environment to have the conversation. We can have the conversation if we're having a 10-8 hike where you actually relax into the conversation. But
or it's like a cafe conversation. It's not a bar conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some conversations are not cafe conversations; they are hike conversations. So you got to go further.
Yeah.
But so it's just that point.
I don't touch that stuff anymore. I live in the Philippines.
Okay, beach walk conversation. I do feel like it's an important conversation because this idea has now gone mainstream. The idea of being somebody that almost to some extent creates this connected thing where this is connected to that, that is connected to that.
Yeah. And there's just so much more they have to notice before they're done before they've noticed all the noticings, all the things to notice. And it's like, I was noticing before noticing was cool, bro. Like remember in high school, I don't know if it was like that for you, but in high school, there was always like, I'd get into the Pumpkins, like Siamese Dream was my first CD. And they're like, man, I was there like at Gish, bro. I would like, I knew them before they were cool, bro. Now they're sellouts, bro. And it's like there's so many people now that are like, just like spouting Alex Jones, like they're turning the frogs gay, and it's like, dude, and they're acting like authoritative. I mean, some people can actually say that I was one of those guys too, like with Hobo with a laptop. I mean, yeah, I bought the domain in like 2012, I think, but I didn't really start cooking with Crisco until like 2017, as I said. So like, some people probably looked at me. It was going along way before that, like I was an OG blog. A lot of people consider me that, but I only say that because I'm told that.
Mm.
But a lot of people probably thought I was like trying to be, but now you've got these new noticers and they'll make a reel and they'll be like, what about this? And they'll cross their arms like it's some sort of flex. And it's like, dude, you're like 12 years. Like what is this? Like, this is not the flex you think it is. Like, you're just
But
showing
at
me
the
that you're
same
learning
time,
impaired.
a more practical thing is one of the things I learned when it came to like marketing is the young people. Like you always want to have the young person who just like got hyper successful the past year because they are probably doing something that you're not aware. So while maybe in the noticing world it's less relevant, in the business world it's hyper relevant because I mean at this like I started travel blogging in 2017 and I had my 100,000 readers by early 2018. And I remember back then travel bloggers were still getting upset if you wrote about the same city that they were ranking number one for. And because people actually at the time believed they had like a monopoly on who gets to name the best cafes in Bali. So the world changed. So and I used to just be a mercenary in that world, and I'm like, I do not respect your boring, non-monetized travel blogging world. Yeah, it's just this thing of like, so the thing that probably works now is things that were considered sacred cows for the previous generation. Let's say you have a marketing technique that's getting popular and you're quote unquote riding the wave and you're getting outsized returns from it. It's not going to last forever. The moment you're off the peak, it makes more sense to throw the old marketing tactic under the bus and being the guy to
Mm-hmm.
be like, hey, I'm revealing the internal secrets of the industry by telling you, dear listener, what the marketing tactic is. And so the moment you know that, okay, going forward, the returns from a marketing strategy is going to give you negative results, you throw the previous marketing strategy under the bus, give it away, and share that as like
Mm-hmm.
you're giving away the secrets when it's in reality the
That's
secrets
what
from
they
the
all do.
first.
Yeah, I know. Like by the
Yeah,
time someone's
exactly.
telling you, it's like every reel I see online right now on Instagram in my algorithm is here's how you make an AI girlfriend. All the simps they'll pay you money, and I'm just thinking like if you're fucking telling me now, it's already over, bro. It's got to be. You know? Yeah. So it's over, and it's happening so quick now. So I'll wrap up the story of Hobo real quick because people if they go to hobowithalaptop.com, it's completely not the same site anymore. When I was going through my degenerate years, I let the hosting lapse, and the 20 gig database file, like the 20 gig file of my website, 24 gigs, it got deleted by the host. And the Hobo now that exists now is more into the not Andrew Tate red pill, but like I'm not gonna because I don't like to subscribe to everything that guy says. But it is kind of I mean, my YouTube channel is called Asia Based because I'm based in Asia. Plus, Asia is generally quite based, and I do a podcast where ideally I'll be talking to girls and kind of comparing like similar line of questioning to whatever and Fresh and Fit to kind of show the nuances because in some ways the girls are cooked here too, TikTok brain, but then in other ways they're not. And then I've kind of like tied Hobo to that now. So I've taken some of my most top articles from the original Hobo through the Wayback Machine. I've put them back, but now I'm writing like legal reasons why you should never date a single mom in the Philippines. Like this is stuff that I would have never touched. But post stroke, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like I know I'm not going to make any money with it. Google killed it. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing with that. So if anybody goes to Hobo and they're like, this site made $20,000 a month, I don't fucking believe it. Well, good. You shouldn't believe it because that's not the site that made the money. The site that made the
Your
money.
site was way good. I was always a guy who was terrible at design. Like you said, how you're a
Yeah.
perfectionist. I was the exact opposite. I would just launch things when they're half ready.
Mm-hmm.
And your site, I do remember, was very well designed, attention to detail, organized. Like you always put in, like
Yeah.
I would say, 10 times more work per piece of content than I ever did.
Yeah, and then I'd hit publish, and I'd still edit it 3 or 4 times after the fact, in the week that followed. I still do that, but yeah, I mean, like now I just don't have enough content to organize the site the way that I had it, but I will actually be doing that again. But yeah, man, like that was awesome though. Like when the income dried up, I was still getting like random, like there was just so much money in the couch cushions on that. I'm probably gonna go and go on a circuit, a podcast circuit, talking about what it's like to be a foreigner in the Philippines, going through a custody battle and dealing with parental alienation because my kids fucking love me. And Instagram.com/Hobo Speaks would be the best place to follow me on that. But yeah, I'll be talking about a lot of stuff like red pill shit, dating shit, survival in the Philippines mostly. But I did rename it from File Republic to Asia Based because I want to take it on the road once I get things figured out. And then I'm going to be starting a brick and mortar business in the Philippines as well.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I'm starting a ghost kitchen, and then I'm going to franchise it, and I think it's going to work. So that'll be the first non-digital thing. Yeah, man. So like, what are your plans for the next 9 months to 5-10 years?
I don't know if you noticed with this conversation, but one of the ways I'm switching to when it comes to content is I have a lot of conversations with my friends, people I know, readers from my blog, like just people in general, which like it's off the deep end. It spirals. It just goes off the deep end and
Like
spirals.
today?
Yeah, like today. So I named the podcast Spiral with Jeremy. So we're just going to spiral. I was thinking about that. I've still not settled on the name. No intro, nothing.
Okay.
But Off the Deep End is another one I'm thinking about. And for the most part, these are all the conversations I have with people. Every conversation I have is something like this. It's a 2 hour long thing that just ends up being, we never know at the end what the conversation is about. And I'm just recording them and going to put them online because I'm already having these conversations and just going to share them publicly. Other than that, I've started a bunch of different businesses because I'm entering a more serious phase of business building in my life, which is when I was 18 or 19, I kind of made the rule of treating my 20s as a time of play. One of the reasons I never got hyper serious about blogging, or it was almost like my safety valve, which was I got very successful very young and it didn't feel like I discovered my entire potential. Like I got successful.
What was that
before
magazine
even
that you blew up?
Founder magazine.
Founder magazine. That's right. Because
Yeah.
I was telling
So
somebody I was coming on the show. I just
yeah,
forgot.
so I became their head of SEO when I was 20.
Yeah.
And I would be on like calls with like people that worked at every large SaaS company. Like just the entire world was like open to me. There was a month in 2018 when I got featured in like 4 newspapers in a single month.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was the level at like just success. People in hostels in Bangkok would recognize me. It was just
That's
like,
cool.
or like were readers of the blog. I spent the 6 years after that having no schedule, doing no Zoom calls, and just basically reading books, going down every rabbit hole I wanted because I realized, because even back then, when I got successful, I was like, I haven't really like explored the map in a way. Like I've not, I don't know the things I want to know. I've not read the books I want to read. I've not done the things I want to do. And now 10 years later, almost exactly 10 years later, I'm now going to actually be in a more serious bubble. I'm going to be a dad in a month. So
Yeah,
that's,
boy.
yeah. So I'm not going to be traveling the whole like continent bouncing as I have the past 10 years. So it's a lot of changes in that way. And I've gotten back into consulting. So to some extent, the same way how we talked about conspiracies, I've kind of like compartmentalized a lot of the ideas, which is, for example, I don't really talk that much about AI outside consulting or paid engagements, building, because it's just because those conversations end up being a drag just as much. So yeah, just doing a lot and specifically pivoting quickly, which is not holding on to what the plan is going to be, just going to go with the flow and understand that the future is going to be different than the past. So almost everything that I've done in the past is irrelevant in a way. Like delete all the old
Yeah.
articles and start
I
from
mean, in some ways,
something
it's
new.
completely useless. You know,
Yeah.
like the things we did then don't work now. You know, so in those ways, but you learn how to think through all those experiences, and that's universal.
Yeah.
I've been really scraping by the last couple of years since everything kind of crashed down, and selling thing by thing by thing, and trying to build all these new. I feel like Iron Man is like in the fucking desert, and I think I'm right at the cusp of like liftoff again. And there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to get into all of it now, but some of it involves AI, some of it involves all of it involves content, all of it. Because I was like, fuck, I'm never going back, and I still feel that way. Like I might actually delete my LinkedIn, but I mean, it is a good poker to have in the fire. Like I probably won't delete it again, but I mean, like I put on there like Hobo with a laptop. If anybody goes from LinkedIn to Hobo, and it's going to be like, you know, like how feminism is killing the Philippines, like that's not kosher with a lot of people. on LinkedIn, you know, so like I just think that I'm so far down, like I'm unemployable, you know, so I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing for the last 20 years, 15, 16, 20 years. And yeah, I'm not going to put a suit on, but you are younger than me. Like you're like what? Like how old are you now?
28.
Okay, yeah. So then I'm 44. So I kind of, you know, dug myself my little inlet, my little home, and I think I'm typecast, you know, as that. I think that I can't go back to being a normie. It's like once you travel and you go home, you know, like once you've scraped the sky, you know, like I mean that's stupid. I sound like a fucking, you know, whatever, but like once you've gotten to a certain point, there's no going back. And I hate working for other people just as much. I mean, if not more than I did before.
But I do think part of it is like it's not necessarily the norminess, but maybe I don't mean this completely an insult, but the cynicism, which is
Yeah.
because the because I've been in that phase. Like I quit Instagram for 6 years because Instagram travel influencers are cancer. The article's still on Medium if you want to read it. But so I do think we both had that phase of massive cynicism that
Yeah, I'm coming out of it too. You know, it's like it's hard to replace it because it creates a vacuum. And it's for me, I would have to at least be like at 30 to 40% of what I was before for me to lose that cynicism. But it's like losing a friend. You know, like when you get couched with anger and cynicism for, you know, as many like for me it's been 3 years just raging against my separation, parental alienation, and taking a dark turn, which I didn't really get into, and I'm not going to on a podcast. I'll save that for mine. But yeah, it's like it's hard to snap out of it because in some ways that anger becomes a comfort, you know, and it propels you, you know, like. Before I was propelled by curiosity and wonder and oh, can I do it? Is this real? Can I make $20,000 a month without working, like just retiring for 6 years, which is what I did, and it was just so full of wonder, and it was just so like wow, internet, serious business, you know, it was like that meme. But now it's like, I'll be honest with you, man, like I see human relationships much differently now, and you know, it's like I used to ask people when I would meet a fresh nomad, you know. What is your glitch and what is your superpower? I believe I asked you the first time I ever met you in person in Bangkok. What is your glitch and what is your superpower? Actually, I did ask you that, I remember. And, you know, like basically, why did you get on a one-way ticket? Who hurt you or whatever the fuck? And then your superpower would be how do you fund it and stuff like that. Now I just find myself not giving a fuck about much, and I'm always looking for what's broken in people. I'm always looking for what's broken now first. And it's kind of taken over, and it's like I have so many self-fulfilling prophecies now that I got to get through. So yeah, I think maybe I went a little deeper into the cynicism than you did, and it really is hard to come back, but I know I will. When you start to see me wearing a suit again, you know, on a podcast, you know, then you'll know that I'm back. But I'm never going to forget. I'm never going to forget what I've learned.
there's a scene in Narnia, I think the second or the third movie, where Aslan has to remove the scales of this guy who touches something and turns into a dragon. And it's this painful scene where every scale is just like skin being ripped off his body. But the guy who comes out on the other side of it isn't the same guy who became the dragon because you
Mm-hmm.
had to physically deal with that pain. So it's coming out stronger on the other side of that. And when it comes to cynicism, and the other emotion you're describing is disillusionment, which is you see all of the games, you see all of the emotions, you see all of the decay, and you can't help but just being like, fuck this, fuck everything, and you're disillusioned with everything. And that was the emotion that led me to travel because, like, I was just disillusioned, like, fuck everything. But you can come out but there is a other side to that and
Yeah.
it's not going back to being a normie, it's not playing a role, it's just being you in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and and just to like before I put the last piece of the puzzle in there, the one that we're missing in this, but like I do fully agree with you, and I think I will come out of this a stronger, more efficient, more finely tuned machine, and one that is definitely going to be more. I mean, I already was pretty damn giving and gracious in my past life, but I think now that I've suffered in the ways that I've suffered in ways that I like my imagination couldn't even touch prior to this, couldn't even touch the ways that I've like the things I've gone through. And But the one piece that's missing is having limbs removed, you know, and I don't think, and I hope, I pray to God that you never know what that feels like to lose a limb, to lose your child, to lose access to your child. Like right now I'm living 2 or 3 blocks from them. And just, they, you know, like I came here to initiate the process of, you know, because I was denied access on January 13th for a birthday, and then I was here a week later in person. In light of my busted ass life, I came here. It was just instinct, father, dadzilla. And I'm blocks away, and they refuse to even go to the meetings with the Barangay Hall. They're calling every bluff, and I have to now take this to court, and it's going to be an uphill battle because I'm a foreigner, and I can't see my kids, and I don't even know where they are. Like, I know when they go to bed because I was seeing them for a little while. You know, every night I was going to their place at 6:30 and seeing them before they would go to bed at 7 or 8. But now I go there and the house is empty, so I don't even know where the fuck they are. And that is being punched in the face with razor blades every second of every day. And it's just something that can make you angry, and it can make you, it can break you. And it is a wound that never closes, and it's not something you can move past. At least not for me. Some people can. They're just like, oh, okay, I'll start another family, or I'll whatever, you know, like, nah, no man left behind, no son left behind. So that's kind of where I leave it, you know, and that's going to be a big part of me going forward. It's going to be content as well, probably. And I don't mean to capitalize on misery the way that I'm going to, but it's like, I'm going to publicly do this fight. And there's this one podcaster here, it's a senator that actually helps foreigners in my situation. And I'll be doing a circuit and like, you know, talking about this more. But yeah, man, it's like losing your heart, losing a limb, you know. And I mean, it's probably even worse than that, because at least when you lose a limb, you can adapt, you know. But with this, there's like, it's just debilitating. So I don't want to poo-poo on the whole podcast and like bring it all down. But that is the one piece that we're missing. Like, yeah, and I think that's kind of why I went into a darker place in the last couple of years. Yeah, but yeah, man, you know, like you said earlier, I think that the next one we do, you know, like years before I met my wife, I had a dream that I was in an intersection of a street, of a city that felt like a Western city. And I had 2 sons. And I have this ability of like snapping out of the dream and thinking. So I was like, I scanned my memory for the woman, for the mother. And she wasn't anywhere in there. I don't know. Like, I just assumed she was dead. So the kids were like 7 and 5. Right now, my kids are 5 and 3. So like, they were like in the, you know, a few years older. And I went to Davao City a little while ago, and I'll be relocating there again to live. And I think I found the intersection from that dream. And that was before I met my wife. And I always told my wife too, I'm like, one day I'm going to be a single dad. I don't know why. I don't know how. Maybe you die. But my wife knew about this dream. And I had 2 sons in the dream. And it's like, I just feel like in a couple years, if I hang on. So the next time we do this podcast, I'll probably have good news for you. I don't know. I'm into that whole dream thing. But yeah, man, you know, like, yeah, it's fucked, man. It's fucked. I could do a whole episode about the dreams I have, man, and how prophetic some of them have been. I really do. Lately, I've been looking at telephone wires a lot differently lately. You know, whenever I'm walking down the street, I'm always looking up at them because it has become such a norm. Like in my dreams, I don't take cars very often. I don't take buses. I fly everywhere. I just like, and I know how it feels here when I lift off the ground, and like, I fly all the time. And one of the things is always like, but it's like, it's hard. It's like, it's not just like, oh, I'm flying. It's like, you feel it come from within, and then you like dip down a little bit, and you got to like, you have to maintain it. And I'm still learning how to do it, but I literally fly every night, and it's becoming more and more of a thing. But the phone, like telephone wires and power wires are always something that I come across. Plus in my dreams, I'm still like trying to hide the fact that I'm flying. So like, you know, like, but you have to, like, avoiding trees and telephone wires is actually quite difficult. And I've probably put in about 50 to 60 to 70 hours in the last year flying in dreams. And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. We just like, now I'm just off the rails. It's off the
Can't
fucking
wait to
rails.
hear it on the podcast. So tell the audience where they can follow you,
Hobo with a Laptop started off as like a very generic, very chill thing. Now it's mainly for men. You know, digital nomads and passport bros. It's geared towards men. I use words that would trigger your average woman. So you can check me out on hobowithalaptop.com. My social media presence is mixed. On Instagram, I'm Hobo Speaks. Facebook, I'm Hobo with a Laptop, but my URL is Asia Based TV. I'm Asia Based TV on YouTube. I tried to keep it a little separate because, like the red pill shit, I wanted to keep it separate from Hobo, but I just decided to go all in. Yeah, so hobowithalaptop.com is the website. I also have asiabased.tv, which is like just a one-page site for that YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Asia Based TV, and some good shit's going to be coming soon because I'm going to be coming into a nice investment into getting all new gear, relocating, getting a proper home, and I won't be a hobo anymore. I've been a hobo. I've had my 40 years in the desert. Now I'm done. So in a couple months, I'm going to be kicking ass and taking no prisoners and whatnot. So yeah, stay tuned for the. Yeah, like you're literally catching it. This is probably the last thing I'll do before that happens. So cool, But yeah, man, it's been really cool, cool catching up with you and stuff. I will take it as a slight intervention, and whether that was intended or not. I also feel like this is one of the worst podcasts I've ever done because some of it was kind of like off the rails. It was like out of left field, and I wasn't able to articulate some of the things on the fly. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it was a very interesting conversation, and I appreciate that you had me on.
Thanks for coming on.